The middle section of the Jupiter finger here, the second phalanx of the index finger, pertains to our mental, as it does with all fingers, the mind's objectives. So we're looking at sort of judgment, something to do with ambition, but how those ambitions are achieved, and decision making. It's a lot to do with decision making. It's how we go about fulfilling our authoritative and dominative needs, our control needs. So it's a lot of it is to do with ambition and how we achieve and complete those ambitions. A single clearly marked vertical line here shows real brilliance and an exceptional kind of single-minded perseverance towards one aim and an ability to achieve that aim. It shows someone who is exceptional at, let's say, persuading others and their environment to procure the right ingredients and develop the right sort of surroundings to enable that achievement, that end, that aim. Person with this marking often becomes very well respected, very well known, and successful. It's a sign of a single kind of ambition where they succeed. A horizontal line here, it creates some sort of obstacle in the path of their decision making, their judgment. There's an obstacle within that kind of creates a barrier towards their own achieving their own ambitions. I would certainly look to whether or not this is in the left or the right hand to see whether or not this is in an internal or an external kind of factor. It creates some sort of unreliability. It's an unfortunate marking. But, like all of these sort of minor lines, they come and go very quickly. Several wavy lines in this area. It's not a particularly good marking. It shows certainly healthy ambitions, several healthy ambitions. But these are sort of corrupted, and the way in which they influence others with the decisions that they make has an unhealthy impact on them and society as a whole. Their aspirations are potentially questionable. I mean, wherever you see sort of waviness, there is something unhealthy there, and often it's hormonal. That we're all chemical after all. Often there's an imbalance in some way, and there requires a little bit of investigation. Again, these need to be clearly marked, isolated, free from defects, for it to really sort of represent what I'm saying. It's not something that's all that, usual. Now, a kind of slanting fork seen here developing in the upper section of the second phalanx of the finger represents, although there are strong ambitions here, there is this kind of like a slanting fork, a Y-shaped, a Y letter. It represents their ambitions, which aren't all that unhealthy, aren't unrealistic. They are in some way um, uh, miss. They're unfortunate due to their own inability to see things through. They have a kind of a twist in their character right at the very end. They sort of it's like self-sabotage. There's a sort of a Jekyll and Hyde about them. Their decision making isn't healthy enough to allow them to um, proceed towards completing that ambition. It's as though they sort of lay the foundation towards something that could be productive and positive, but then something else sort of develops, and they create the circumstances for their own demise in some sort of way. And unfortunately, it creates unhappiness. And they never truly manage to complete that success, that ambition, fulfill that, whatever that might be. Again, these lines can and do change all the time. And it might just be, centered around one aim, one plan, one project. It's not to say that this is the be all and end all of their life's story. And the same can be said for all of these kind of, um, minor. Um, Rare Palmer markings. Crosses are often negative because it's often, there's a barrier, an obstacle obstructing the flow, the energy, a certain sort of path of some kind of force. But no, in this case, a cross seen on the second phalanx of Jupiter is a really positive sign. It's a sign of literary success. It's a mark of an influential writer. And I suppose it's a little bit like the writer's fork, where there's a division of, um, where energy sort of divides and spreads out. It's almost like there's a crossroads, an ability to sort of uh, develop those decision making to see things from more than one perspective. That's a kind of a necessary skill in writing when we form characters in a book. Now, this is a very rare marking. A star seen on the second phalanx of Jupiter is someone who lives a very sort of saintly life, who has this um, remarkably tremendous sort of purity of thought in decision making, and it's almost as though their decision making comes from sort of divine intervention. They seem to know exactly um, how to live a life of purity, and they have a tremendous character, and they're known for knowing what the right thing to do is in any given moment. They are often highly spiritual, and they become sort of known to be sort of saints, I suppose, and people end up coming to them with their problems. That they're of a sort of highly moral nature, and they end up, becoming very well known for this, and people sort of flock to them to help with them with their problems. It's a sign of a saint, really. It's a marking of a very sort of profound and religious spiritual figure. Now, in all areas of diplomacy and politics, the triangle on the second phalanx here, when it comes to conflict resolution and negotiating, this person is remarkably gifted, but not so much gifted. Triangles always represent study, at least I've always found. So this shows not only the capacity to facilitate diplomatic discussions and make sort of headway politically in public relations. Um, they are very sort of influential in that respect as well. Not only do they have that capacity, but they have studied themselves in these areas and they have a great interest in it. It's certainly a marking of distinction in the areas of worldly sort of public affairs in terms of diplomacy and political acumen. Person with a square on the second phalanx of Jupiter here is someone who makes great ambition, someone with a great sort of drive, determination, um, with an ability to kind of achieve those ambitions, and makes great success and is known. But at the same time, a lot of people become envious and jealous of them, but they are sort of protected from that envy. The reason why and how they're protected from those around them that might wish to do them harm for whatever reason, and obviously jealousy and envy is one of those, is because they're very good at protecting themselves through knowing how to navigate and maneuver to say the right things and to, at the right times to the right people, and knowing how to avoid situations as well. Again, this is sort of conflict resolution, but in a way that helps them, protects them in um, pursuing and fulfilling their ambitions, and just sort of protecting them full stop, really. Circles in palmistry are, to me, I mean, I don't ever see them. A lot of palmists say they just don't exist. A circle on the second section of the index finger, the Jupiter finger, is said to be circles. Let's just clarify this here. Circles are infinite, aren't they? They are. It's a Ouroboros. It's a snake eating its own tail. It's a mark of infinity, and there's a sort of it's almost like a sort of a portal or a gateway. Um, there's something that's quite sort of pure about it, extremely unusual. And in this case, it's said to be a mark of someone who lives on after their death in name, in reputation, through artistic success. So more than likely an artist. So their work, their decision around making a certain piece of work, piece of art, allows them to live on um, forever, in name after their death, and that's said to be what this symbolizes. Although I don't think I'll ever see this. The net or the grille, seen on the second section of the index finger, is I've made it messy on purpose because it's a messy sign. It shows a complete disruption, a web of the flow of energy. It's just scatty, it's fragmented, it's not clean or clear. It is creating complication. Again, this is likely due to some sort of hormonal imbalance, and it shows someone who is unreliable. No, that's not right. Deceptive, because the decisions they make are designed to create confusion and complications amongst others. They want to influence in a way that creates mess. A good way of putting it is that they want to create a breakdown of communication, misunderstandings. And I suppose it might not be that they want to, but their actions, their decision making has that effect. Now, this last marking I'm going to talk about is very um, unusual, and it's certainly interesting. It is a marking where a line rises from the Jupiter mount itself, crosses the bottom phalanx, the third section, the third phalange of Jupiter, right up onto the second section here, and it works its way up, and it shows someone who has um, honourable and noble aspirations, who is of a great character. They're highly ambitious, and they succeed with honours, distinction in their chosen field, and they become very highly recognized. They become recognized for doing good deeds um, for others and act in the interests of others in the community, in the public eye. They are someone who has potentially worked for the benefit of others and made a sort of made that their ambition. It's really only through their personal sort of hard work and their own sort of effort that they managed to achieve this. So it's not without some sort of sacrifice as well. So they really give all they have in order to do the right thing for a great many. It's a sign of uh, the an ambition towards the greater good. In a very sort of noble and honourable sense. It's an unusual sign. Um, and it's a really positive one. It's a really, really um, it's a sign of nobility and a purity of ambitions. It's such a healthy sign to see in a person's sort of character. You can tell you can see their intentions are pure and good. And that's really sort of concludes this video. This is the Dalai Lama's hand, and you can see here several vertical lines, which is a Palmer marking I've not really gone over, and that's because it's a very similar meaning to a single vertical line. He has many interests, many ambitions, and becomes well known and respected for these, and you can see them quite clearly on his hand. They're not completely. Zoom out further. I don't know. Zoom out further. Zoom out further. I'm really not sure why my camera decides to do that kind of dramatic 70s zoom, but there we go. You can see these lines aren't completely isolated. Some of them are, but there's still many of them. So you can see essentially that there have been lots of instances where this person has had to persuade people and kind of manipulate their environments in order to get the very best out of situations and do what's right. So there's lots of noble ambitions and interests that are achieved through um, consistent consistently sort of pursuing these causes and aims honorably, nobly. There's that kind of that they are honorable aspirations, and the way in which they make their decisions are, well aligned and are for the benefit of others, really, and have positively influential effects on those around them. So there we go. That's my video on the uh, rare signs seen on the second phalanx of Jupiter. And I've made, or I'm going to make, videos on all of the sections of all of the fingers, in regards to these rare palmar markings that do, and I've seen it happen, come and go. And sometimes you can see them really clearly marked, really ingrained, as though they've been there for years, and they just come and go, literally in a few days. It does happen. So don't draw too much significance from these, and try not to look too much into what you see in your own hands. We are far too close to our own situation to really be impartial about, making these assessments and concluding. It's not to say don't look at your hands. That's how we learn a lot of it. But at the same time, seek out a professional palmist to get their opinion. I'm quite happy to answer anyone's questions about their own hand, but for a full reading, please do book on my website. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.